Hello, and welcome to the Iron Spoon Kitchen, where today we're going to discuss things all iron spoon. Not really, but this is a kitchen, and some of you may know, some of you may not know that we're coming up on the 250th anniversary of our country. And so that will be in 2026. And I had an idea that I would go through and look at cookbooks and find recipes from these cookbooks over that 250 years. And the first one I came across was, as it says, the first American cookbook. And the original name was and this is a copy of the original, a facsimile of the American Cookery, 1796, by Amelia Simmons. And she apparently wrote the first American cookbook. And up until that time, cookbooks were simply, well, they were from Great Britain, from England, and they had how to prepare meals with the ingredients that they had over there. This is the first time with this book that you see ingredients such as artichoke and what they called Indian corn or Indian meal, and that was made from corn, and which you would not see in a book from England. And and Amelia Simmons, this book was actually copied again and given a new forward to it back in the 50s. And so this woman, Mary Wilson, she went through and did some research and found out some more about Amelia Simmons and did more research on different types of cookbooks. And one of the things that she found is that some of her recipes, came from other cookbooks. There's a lot in here about how to grow plants, how to have herbs and things like that, the proper use of them. And she took those from other cookbooks. They were standard, kind of like today. If you're going to make a pie crust, it's pretty much the same no matter what. Some people have a little variations in it, but it's still, you got to have flour in it, to start with. So anyhow, so she was the first one to put this down, and she actually was self-published, and it even says so on the front page here when they show the original cover. And you can go to the National Archives and see the original book that they have online. That's what I did, and you can read it right there. And the whole title is this. It's very interesting: American Cookery, or the Art of Dressing. Viands, that means meats, fish, poultry, and vegetables, and the best modes of making pastes, puffs, pies, tarts, puddings, custards, and preserves, and all kind of cakes, from the imperial plum to the plain cake, adapted to this country and all grades of life, by Amelia Simmons, an American orphan. I thought that was interesting that she put that she was an orphan. Published according to Act of Congress, and that was, I believe, sort of like a copyright of that time. Printed by Hudson and Goodwin for the author, and that essentially means that it was self-published. Now, although she goes on to talk about her life as an author, as an orphan, she was able to get this book published, and she, talks about how difficult it was for her being an orphan, not having a family, and she wasn't uncommon for that to happen. It still happens today, obviously, but she went on to talk about how she felt like she had come of age, and she was trying to get something back to the world, and especially in the art of cookery. And that was the other thing, is that it was you didn't say cookbook, you said a book of cookery. And another thing that was very interesting in here is that recipes back then were receipts, and that was spelled as receipt. Later on, you would see the term recipe shortly thereafter, 3 or 4 decades later. But receipts was the proper term. So let's look through this a little bit. I've pretty much decided what I'm going to cook, and in this video, this is not going to be any finely edited, and I've turned on the camera and it's going to go. You're going to see it all right here, and then I'll do a little bit of editing. but this is a one-man show right now. But she goes through here talking about how to uh, trim a turkey, how to prepare wild duck, goose, capons, chickens, eels, fish, everything. In fact, one of the things I found out was that oysters were a big part of it. You probably heard of oyster dressings in New England in that area, and it's very popular because it was a food that people were able to easily get if you were on the uh, on the coast, and you just had so many seashells piled up. And I grew up in Galveston, and we had oyster shell alleys and roads in some places. You didn't have gravel. Well, I mean, you could have gravel, but it was oyster shell, and it made a great road for everything. In fact, at my family's lumber yard, it wasn't asphalt or concrete. It was all oyster shell, and you'd get potholes in it, but it's a great base for roads. And I assume that they used that up north as well. So this talks about eggs. What does a good egg look like? And this is interesting. Eggs should be clear, thin shelled, longest oval, and sharp ends are best. To ascertain whether new or stale, hold to the light. If the white is clear, the yolk regularly in the center, they are good. But if otherwise, they are stale. The best possible method of ascertaining is to put them in water. If they lie on their bilge, they are good and fresh. If they bob up and end, they are stale. And if they rise, they are addled, proved and of no use. Now, I'm kind of stumbling over the words here because back then in this writing, there instead of an S, they used a symbol like an F. So I had to stick the S in there. So like fresh starts with an F, but then it has another symbol similar to an F before the H. H. I shouldn't have any trouble with H though. So very, very interesting. And so again, how to cook a turkey, how to dress a turtle. There's a whole 2 full pages on that. But I'm not cooking a turtle today. Let's see what else. Minced pies. Lots of terminology you wouldn't know. A tongue pie, beef tongue. And they used the term neat, N-E-A-T. That referred to meat or to bovines. Apple pie. I think that's what we're going to do. That would be probably the best thing. So let's find apple pie in here. There's not a whole lot of directions on some of these. So in these books of cookery, it is assumed that people have some knowledge of how to measure and how to cook certain things, because it doesn't give any measurements. Measurements and things like that didn't come along till much later. And that's why it was so important back then to have your grandmother's recipes or receipts and your mother's, and you kept those because they had been tried and tested over time, and you knew how much to put in. Were you putting in a spoonful? Well, what kind of spoon? This sort of spoon or a big spoon? And it wasn't until I guess the late 1800s when measuring spoons started to become popular. And one of the cookbooks, I think it was Fanny Farmer, that was the first time that you really saw the use of measuring spoons being used in telling you what to do. So in here, like for example, let's look at here. This is a rich custard. 4 eggs beat and put to 1 quart cream, sweetened to your taste. So that's the measurement. What's your taste? Half a nutmeg and a little cinnamon baked. That's it. Three lines. Now, if you go to cookbooks today, that same thing will have, everything spelled out for you, obviously. But let's find that. Where is that apple pie in here? Tongue pie. Keep coming across the tongue pie. That would be a cow's tongue. You don't see that in the store anymore. I used to always see that in the store as a kid. I'd see that and like, ooh. But like anything, it's how you prepare it, and that's the difference. Apparently, tongue doesn't have much flavor to it. It's how you cook it, what spices and herbs you put with it. Okay, apple pie, potato pudding, apple pudding dumpling. We're getting close. Apple, pumpkin. Oh, see it, pumpkin. And then here that's called pumpkin, Pompkin. So that would be good. Orange. Oh, here we go. Well, that's apple tart. Now, I know that there's an apple in here. That's why I'm doing this. Should have marked the page. They got things that you can do to do that. Well, I know it's in here, but being semi-prepared, I printed out the recipe. So apple pie. Stew and strain the apples. To every 3 pints, grate the peel of a fresh lemon. Add cinnamon, mace, rose water, and sugar to your taste. Like once again, to your taste. And bake in a paste number 3. And in the book, she has different types of paste. Would be the what's the term, the shell, the pie shell, and so she goes through here and tells you use a number 3 paste for your pie shell, or if you're going to put something on the top, anything like that, whatever that unusual word is concerning pie shells. And then again, it's just a taste. So there is 3 lines, with the 4th line being about number 3. So let's get on with it. As I said, this is going to be, I'm going to cook this in this 12-inch skillet. This is heavy. This has got to be about 10 pounds. Now, typically you wouldn't cook a pie in something that big, but I've adjusted the recipe so it will fit. Now, I'm not any trained cook or anything, but I've cooked a few pies, so I have some idea of what I'm going to do here. But the first thing we're going to do is that we got a lot of apples to peel and cut up. So, and I've got some Granny Smith and then some Fuji apples. Now, most of the time, the recipes call for use of tart apples, but I've also read recipes where you can combine them, the two. And again, this is not trying to be pioneer man or something like that, where I'm doing everything perfectly. What I am going to do is follow the ingredients on this, and to see what it would taste like back then. And, not really, but to have an idea, and to see what would an apple pie possibly taste like back then. We'll make the crust for it and everything based on what I know today. I mean, she has it in there, but again, it's just put the just like 2 or 3 ingredients is there. And I don't want to do something that is just a disaster and spend all this time doing this and then find out that oh gee, this is, if I had add a little bit more sugar, this would be really good. So I'm trying to make this as good as I can with the knowledge I have today, but still, like for example, it calls for fresh lemon, cinnamon, and mace. So I'm not going to be adding any nutmeg or anything else to it. But this was something you may not know. Mace is actually the husk that goes around nutmeg. So it has a very similar taste, and it has, I think it has a little bit of an aftertaste to it, unlike nutmeg does. But it comes from the nutmeg tree, and it's like a big pit. Well, I think I had some nutmeg. Where did I put that nutmeg? I thought I had it out. Here. This is the almost prepared chef show. So here is a nutmeg. You've seen that before, I'm sure. Oh, let's make it disappear. Ah! And and so the mace, there's a little husk that comes around there when you take it out of the fruit. And what they do is they found out, oh, the husk is good too. But what's funny is that the fruit doesn't taste good at all. Apparently, nobody buys the fruit. But anyway, so but for this one, you can't buy the husk, at least at my grocery store. So I got a ground mace that I'll be using, and so so anyway, so I'm gonna stick with those ingredients. Oh, and rose water. That's something else that I have never used. Now I've heard about it on some cooking shows, that sort of thing. Uh, the one thing I've heard is that don't overuse it, and so it smells like roses. Hmm. So well, that'll be interesting to find out how that tastes in there. So this is an ingredient that I have not used before, and I hope I don't use it too much and mess it up. So let's see, where is my peeler? So let's get started. Ooh, the organic, it's still. So we've got a lot here. Oh, well, cutting up all these apples and makes me think of, do I have one? Well, who's this? That's right, Johnny Appleseed, except his pot fit his head better. And he was really known as John. His real name was John Chapman, and he was. A lot of us hear the legends of him, and but he was a real person, and he was born in 1774 in Massachusetts, and he actually was a very smart man, and learned about uh, planting apple trees and how to have an orchard. And so he learned all about that. And so and he wasn't just a guy skipping around, throwing uh, apple seeds everywhere. Uh, Apples back then, for pioneers in some parts was actually a currency because it was so valuable. And so he and he was actually a religious fellow as well, and he saw God in everything, and he wanted to make sure that people had this sort of fruit that could be used for so much. And so he uh, after learning the trade of being I guess you could call him a gardener. I don't know what you'd say. He was a uh, horticulturalist or something, horticulturist or anything like that. But he definitely knew what he was doing. He was not just some goofy guy with a pot on his head. And that probably came from he did like to tell a lot of stories, and maybe at one time he did put a pot on his head and just to be silly, but he definitely knew about apples. And one of the interesting things about him is that they say Johnny Appleseed, and it's and you think, oh well, yeah, of course it comes from seed, but most apples uh, are grafted onto other trees that are already established and sturdy. A lot of people do that with fruit. They do it with pecan trees, and that makes it, you've already have an established tree, and then you graft it on there, and then it starts to bear fruit. And so what he did is that he went to cider mills or places that, well, almost every place had some sort of a press, and he would go there and get the seeds that nobody wanted. And they would just give him the seeds. So he got around to the point of planting the seeds. And planting seeds, as I said, it wasn't just for apples. A lot of people planted apple seeds, and I guess other things too, to mark their property. And so that was very important as well. So he traveled all over he was born in Massachusetts. I don't know if I said that or not, but he ended up going to Pennsylvania. I believe it's Pennsylvania, where he learned the trade of being an orchard man and how to grow the fruit. And then after that, he was more or less a missionary for uh, helping out people uh, with apples and planting seeds. Now that a lot of times we think of missionaries as people who uh, are not are giving of themselves. Well, they are giving of themselves, but what I'm getting at is that he wasn't necessarily a poor man because he owned actually a lot of land. Now maybe he didn't have a lot of assets, but uh, he was rich in spirit. That's for sure. So he would travel around. Oh, and by the way, I did already clean all these. So he'd travel around giving away seeds and planting all those different, and telling people, well, this is how you grow it. And an apple grown from a seed used to be called a pippin, Pippin, and that's in that book too. And like I said, you can go to the National Archives and take a look at that book and read it. That's how I first became familiar with this. Very interesting. Uh, all the recipes in there. It tells you uh, how to prepare a calf's head for stewing. You know, as many of us have been told, they didn't leave any part of the cow or pig or chicken behind. It was used in some way or another. We get a little bit spoiled nowadays. Only 72 more apples to go. So back to John Chapman. As I said, he was born in Massachusetts in 1774, and he went to Pennsylvania, learned about uh, being an orchard man, and then started, you know, going across to, again, this is the early 1800s. So the frontier was, Ohio and that area. And, and so he spent a lot of time in parts of Ohio. I forget the city where he was originally, but there's actually a museum for him made for him in Ohio that you can visit and learn even more about the stuff that I have been saying. And at their museum, they have a garden of grafted apples, which is kind of unusual since he was about planting seeds. But but it is the line of Appleseed or apple that Johnny had back in the 1700s. So it was it's very it looks like a really neat museum to visit. And I first really learned about Johnny Appleseed when I taught second grade, and we'd always did a unit on it each year, and to learn about John Chapman. And we would end the culminating activity would be an apple tasting party, which I enjoyed as much as the students did, where I would ask parents to send in some sort of an apple dish, and we would share it and taste it. And some of the things that were brought in, they were fresh, or I don't know if they were homemade, but they were fresh out of the oven. I'll just say that. But my classroom smelled really good on that day, since I happened to do 472 apples here. Okay, that part's done. Put that there, but I'm not going to put it down the garbage disposal because I've done that before with this much. And, well, it stops up your garbage disposal. Yeah. So now let's go ahead and cut. I imagine watching me do all this is like watching somebody cut up apples. I had so much to say about Johnny Appleseed, I just kept on cutting. Maybe I should have sung a tune, and when the tune was over, then I'd stop chopping. I don't know any apple tunes. Oh, I didn't mean that. Was there any songs about apples? No. Let's see. I know Beautiful Texas, since I'm in Texas. Learned that in elementary school. Oh, beautiful, beautiful Texas, where the beautiful bluebonnets grow. We're proud of our forefathers who fought at the Alamo. You can live on the plains or the mountains, or down where the sea breezes blow. But you're still in beautiful Texas, the most beautiful place that I know. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Okay, that was about 1 minute. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think we're going to stop with this one. I'm going to have to eat a lot of extra apples. We're going to mix this up. Here's sugar and flour. And then here is the mace. I have never used this mace. Ooh. Is 2017 that long ago? I think my mom bought that years ago. So if it says Best by 2017, she probably bought it like in 15 or ooh. This might go back to John Chapman's days. Okay, we're going to try to mix all this together in here. So this is about a cup and a third of sugar. Some of my sugar got lumps in it. We're gonna mix that up. Let's see. Gosh, I think I probably just used my hands. Yeah, this is a lot of apples. I hope this is worth it. I can do this without getting it all on the floor. So this is the sugar will start drawing out juice. And then a little flour goes in. That's about a half cup of that. And I'm not worrying about telling you what all the measurements are. You know, you can get so many cookbooks. Oh, I should have put on an apron. You can get all those ingredients there for what it should be. Oops, some got away. I did adjust the recipe for having this many apples. Yes, bad idea. Bad idea to have this many apples here. You know what? No, I don't want to do that. But I guess I could put them in 2 containers. I'll just have to redistribute here. Did I tell you that I'm not a trained chef? No, I'm not. So don't write in and say, you should have done it this way, you should have done it that way. I bet that tastes really good. If you can't see it, that's like sugar and apples and a little bit of flour. And if you weren't watching, I'd probably lick that off my hand. But I'll do the proper thing and rinse it off. And where did I put my towel? Way over here. Okay, now, just stepped on a piece of apple. This is going to be one messy kitchen. Okay, I'm going to put in about a teaspoon, probably a little bit more. You know what? I think I'm going to do a half a teaspoon in each. Kind of a big teaspoon. I mean, half a teaspoon. So that's more than a teaspoon because it was kind of like a heaping teaspoon. And then it calls for a little bit of sugar, so this is like 1/8 of a teaspoon. And now the mace, the 10-year-old mace. Hopefully I don't rain it with this. Okay. Yeah, like I said, it smells kind of like well, it smells like nutmeg, but it has a little bit of a stronger flavor. And maybe, ooh, just barely fits in there. Okay. So we'll put about half there, and a little bit in this, the other half in here. Remember, mace is the husk around the nutmeg. I may have just put way too much 10-year-old mace in there. That's there. Now this rosewater stuff, that's going to be the mystery. Oh yeah, this is all already coming together. Okay. Yeah. Well, you put sugar, cinnamon. Yep. Let me mix this one separate. Dough, the pie dough. That's what I was trying to think of. Kept calling it crust. But you see, you get on camera, you get nervous and all, and you forget things. Like, what's the name of this show? The Iron Fork? No, the Iron Spoon. Spoon. Ooh, that'd be good. The Iron Spoon. 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 That might be a sound effect I add once I figure out how to do all that. Okay. Now here's the mystery. It does smell like roses. I'm just going to put a total of 1 teaspoon. I'm going to put half there. Whoops. Half on the table and then half over here. It really does smell like roses. What are the ingredients? Ingredients: cane alcohol, natural flavors, glycerin, and rose oil. I was kind of worried that, okay, well, where's the rose part? Okay, we got this mixed up. Well, let's just taste one of these and see what it tastes like. You can taste that rose in there. It's just a hint. But that mace, that tastes just like, let's taste this one. Yeah, it's not I think I put in just the right amount of that rose water because you get just a hint of it, which is a neat flavor. You don't expect that flavor to be in there, and it goes well with it. I was worried about the mace more than I was the rose water, but as far as the amount goes. Okay, so let me put all this together here. And I think I will stop the camera at this point. So we'll be back in just a minute. Okay, it's time for the pie dough. That mystery term I could not remember. So we've got our flour here. And again, I'm doing this in a 12-inch pan, skillet, iron skillet. So I'm gonna need more than usual. So this is a little bit more than 3 cups of flour. And again, it's following the recipe from 1796. It had ratios of flour to lard or to suet, and this is about a teaspoon of salt. So mix that up, and then I did get lard, and if I can get it out of the box, there we go. So we need about 1 1/3 cups, but this is like this is 1 pound. This is 1 pound of lard. So it's like butter. So we would need 2.5 sticks, or 2 1/3 sticks, I think. Yes, it is. Okay. Well, that would be in half. So that would be about a cup. Right, cheer. And then another third. Let me just take that. I'll be right about there. That's close enough. Don't you think that's close enough? And then I'm just going to put it in pieces and into the flour and salt mixture, and then I'll cut it in. So this is about 10 tablespoons of cold water. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I remembered correctly. So let's get all this mixed together with the hand mixerator. Ugh, flour's going everywhere. Maybe I should have greased my hand first. We're making progress with the hand mixerator. Hand mixerator 5000. Whoops! It's jumping out like those apples did. Oh. Now, if you use both hands, it becomes the mixerator, you guessed it, 10,000. Unless you're missing a digit, then it could be the 9,000. Okay, come on. Let's get this. We're getting close to the end here. I got the oven warming up. Now, some pie doughs you have to put in the refrigerator and all that, and This is not one of them. Because they didn't have refrigerators in 1796. There's that. I'm glad I left the flour out. Okay. Now this, remember me saying that the recipe said do it until you're tired? Your arm is tired? Well, with doing this part, you get tired almost immediately. So that anecdotal advice wouldn't be too good. Now I'm going to put part of this on the bottom. I'm going to need more in the bottom than the top, I think. So let's start here. Don't stick. Don't stick. Uh-oh. I think I've been talking with my towel over my microphone the whole time. Well, c'est la vie. Hopefully it still picked me up. Yeah, this is going to be a nice thick crust. I got to get it a lot bigger than this, though, to go over that. Time to go. Get all that good juice out of there. This is going to be more juicy than most pies. Boy, that filled it up. Let me show you. See, all those apples, 8 apples, I think, is what I ended up doing. Let's see how it tastes. You taste that lemon. Yeah, I don't know if I said this, but I grated the lemon and put that in. I saved you from having to watch me grate the lemon, because that was part of the original recipe, was to put grated lemon in there. Okay, let's see. Come on. Be enough. Ah, success. Just one little patch job. Well, 2 patches. But you see, this way, if you forgot to put vents in it, it would have natural vents. Okay, but I do need to put those vents in there. Yeah, if this comes out good, I will be amazed. That's going to be a extra tough part. Maybe I shouldn't have worn my ring. Gee. Okay. So we got it all in there. Remember, the point of this was to see what the flavors are. The technique, go to someone else for the technique. But we've got it in there, and we're going to put it in the oven, and for some order of minutes, and then I'll be back to see you. So let me get on this side, open up this thing, put this thing in here. It weighed 8 pounds before. Now it weighs 108 pounds. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, here it is. It's getting a little too dark at the top, but it is ready to come out. So I just wanted you to see it just before I take it out of the oven. Here's the pie. It is all cooled and ready to be cut. So let's see how that goes. I'm going to see if I can do both at one time here. Oh, the crust seems nice and crisp. Okay. Forgot the pie server. Just a second. Okay, time to get the pie. Oh, it didn't stick. Okay. Looks pretty good. Not too juicy. Smells good. Yep. Get on there. Get on that fork. Okay. I'm going back for seconds. Excellent. That mace on there and some of the other taste. Uh, you can taste a little bit of that rose water. I used just enough. I think I used like 1 teaspoon, and that was for about 8 apples, so I wouldn't use more than that. Crust is excellent, so it all worked well. Looked a little burned on the top. I was kind of worried, but I cooked it for about 50 minutes, and then it cooled for well over an hour, and I had a meeting to go to and came back. It was just right. So success. Well, that concludes our episode of the Iron Spoon featuring the apple pie from the first American cookbook, American Cookery 1796 by Amelia Simmons. I hope you learned something today. I certainly learned that I don't want to cut up that many apples ever again. But the serious part of it is that this all started simply because I was looking at the National Archives website and found this book and thought, oh, this is interesting. And it led me to doing all this. So take a chance and look up something. Get on the internet. It's literally at your fingertips, whatever you want to find out. And with this being coming up our 250th anniversary of our country, there's so much that you could learn. First start with learning about your family. If you've got that shoebox full of old photos, pull it out. Share it with your kids, with your grandkids, with anyone that's interested. And write the names of the people who are in those pictures, if you know them. Don't wait till them, this is what, I don't know who it is. Grandma knew, but I never asked her. Don't be that person. Get out there and take a look at it. You'll find it very interesting. And also take some time to visit a museum. Every town has some sort of a exhibit, whether it's small or large, city, county museum, state museum. Use this time to go out there and find out what's going on. I remember in the bicentennial back in 1976, my parents bought this for me, and it's a copy of the Declaration of Independence, postmarked with some of the historic stamps that were published during that year in 1976. And the postmark is July 4th, 1976. And I've always kept this. It's really in good condition. And here's another thing I got as a souvenir visiting Mount Rushmore one time. And it's George Washington's farewell address. Find out some things like that. But again, as I said, start with your family. Find out what's there, and you'll enjoy it. I guarantee you. Well, thanks for joining me for the Iron Spoon episode of the year. Well, maybe just of the day. Have a wonderful day, and thank you so much.